Andy Johnson. This is part 2 of a discussion on the limitations of word accuracy for reading. We are going to look at an interesting study by Stephen Kucer. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but he has several very good studies like this published over the years, and I would highly recommend his book, Dimensions of Literacy. In the first video, we talked about systematic phonics instruction, what that is. Everyone believes that phonics instruction is important. It's not the what, it's the how and the how much, in which there are differing views. Not everyone has the same understanding of what scientifically based reading research is. Instead of a very narrow view, I and many other literacy scholars embrace a wider view that encompasses a full range of data, and we don't limit our understanding to just a very narrow range of data. And here we will talk about, in this one, the limitations of word reading accuracy. And there again is the study. First of all, his focus was on reading expository text. Starting in 4th grade, students tend to encounter more expository text than narrative text. Sometimes this is the reason for the 4th grade slump, as they call it. Expository texts are different than narrative because there's more lexical density. That means more conceptually and linguistically density, more information packed into sentences, more clauses packed into sentences as well. For this study, he looked at 4th graders from 2 schools. They were at or slightly above grade level. Only proficient readers were used here because he wanted to look at reading miscues, but eliminate word accuracy and fluency as variables. For example, he did not want a miscue to be caused by deficient word accuracy or fluency. So he used only readers who were at or slightly above grade level. The procedures: students read expository text out loud. They were recorded, oral recordings by a oral recording for miscue analysis. A miscue is when what is read by the student does not match what is on the page. Miscues give us a sense both of word identification strategies and comprehension, how the brain is processing that information. Retellings were used as well to assess comprehension and recall. They assessed the number of clauses that students were able to recall. And a clause here is defined as a verb and the elements that cluster around it. 2 types of miscues were used here. 2 types of miscues. They were meaningful miscues and meaning disruptive miscues. A meaning maintaining or meaningful miscue is when the author's intended meaning is maintained. Meaning disrupted when the author's intended meaning is disrupted. Sometimes we call that a significant miscue. All right, so those 2 types of miscues were examined. The results: clauses in which there were more meaningful miscues were significantly more likely to be recalled than clauses with no miscues. Meaning, they could have read it correctly, but when they read it with a meaningful miscue, they were significantly more apt to recall that clause. This points to the idea that accuracy in maintaining meaning was more significant, more important than accuracy in word recognition for comprehension and recall. What should we focus then? We should focus on strategies that focus on meaning. All right, so the discussion, again, clauses with meaningful miscues, this is significant, were more likely to be comprehended and remembered in retelling than clauses with no miscues. This would be clauses in which there was 100% word recognition accuracy. Meaningful miscue, the reader had to produce alternate ways of expressing the same idea. There was a change in the surface structure while maintaining the deep structure. Now, for meaningful miscues, the reader has to rely on semantic and syntactic information, not just phonological letter clues, but also develop meaning at a deeper level, at a more essential level, process the text at deeper levels, and it displays or demonstrates some metacognition. Thinking about thinking, does this make sense? Meaningful miscues were possible only because the reader understands the text and is making meaning with the text. It's not possible to make meaningful miscues if meaning is not being created. So recall of the big ideas is correlated with recall of clauses as well. This is a second thing that he found. If students recalled or identified the big ideas in the text, they were more apt to recall the clauses. And again, this points to the importance of identifying structure and big ideas when reading expository text. Okay, so recall of the big ideas correlated with structure, and instructional strategies should focus on maintaining author's meaning. That's more important than focusing on word accuracy and speed. We need to focus our instructional strategies on those things that maintain meaning versus word accuracy and speed. So what should be our instructional focus? Again, creating meaning with print, identifying the big ideas. This does not mean that word accuracy is not important. This does not mean that phonics is not important, but this should be set within a meaningful context to the greatest extent possible. And the biggest of idea, this research and a lot of other great research that helps us understand, helps support theoretical perspectives, this would be ignored using the government's standard or the gold standard as described by the government. The gold standard really is like the lead standard.